All righty. So, all right. So what am I going to do here? So we'll talk about quant and qual methodology, but I will allocate time to discuss literature review and statistics tool and a qualitative tool. And it makes me want to jump to the end of this thing. So for faculty. So I'm going to go here. So for faculty, particularly those looking for quant and qual tools, since I did mention them, you can go to these websites. We'll have one website in about a month or so. But at the moment, you can really access qual tools, quant tools, and lit review tools at these places and consultation there. So kind of jump to the end. Sorry about that. But and then also for faculty, Ashley or Melissa, particularly Ashley, is there at your service to help with lots of things like trials and courses and demos and things of that sort. Okay, let's get back to where I was. All right, so methodology. Um, at the at the end of the day, the methodology is basically you have a set of research questions, or for you DMP folks, study aims. And at the end of the day, the methodology is simply a document that tells the reader how you're going to examine those research questions. How are you going to examine those study aims? And it should be detailed enough where you give this to your spouse and they can conduct the study. They can conduct the study? Yeah. They have enough information about your participants and your instruments and your data analysis plan that they can go and conduct the study. So that's the intent of these things. Okay. So let's start with quant. So the bones of this is 6 pieces. You need research questions. I should have my little tool over here. Can I get my little tool over here? My little highlighter? Okay. Maybe I won't mess with it too much. Oh, all right. You'll have to bear with my cursor. So the bones of it are you need research questions or study aims. Okay. For the quant, you need participants. Who are the participants? Okay. What part of the country? What organization do they work for? Are they males and females? What are their ages? Okay. And then you have instruments. These have to be reliable and valid instruments. Unless you are really, I'll say a seasoned researcher, you should not be making your own instruments for the quant. Okay, so you really need reliable and valid instruments because you're going to take that reliability and validity information and put that into your instrument section in your methodology. So that has to be there. By the way, if you want to make up your own, a IRB could say, pick a name. Okay, Patrick, how do you know that your questions for your quantitative are reliable and valid? Okay, you don't have an answer to that. Okay, you can assess reliability, but you can't speak to validity. So the answer is use reliable, valid instruments. I guess I will also say, some people say, well, there are no instruments, there are no, in the planet, okay, over decades, there are no instruments assessing what I want to be assessing. Really? Okay, so you're a doc student who is cutting out new paths. No, we do not want to be cutting out new paths. We want to be adding a little bit to going through the process, adding a little bit to the literature, and moving along. Okay, so reliable, valid instruments is the answer there. The procedure is, now that I've talked about the participants, now that I've talked about the instruments, now how am I going to administer? What is the procedure to administer those instruments to those participants? What am I doing? Well, I'm going to go advertise on, through Qualtrics and get people. I'm going to put up some ad on Facebook, whatever. Okay. So you need to talk about that. Okay. And by the way, that roommate or that spouse needs to know what that procedure is. How are you doing it? Okay. This is the who, this is the what, and this is the how. Okay. After we have those bones down, okay, you need to have a data analysis plan. This is where I'm going to spend a few minutes on because that's where most people get stuck. Most people can figure out participants, most people get instruments and procedure, but they're like, I have no idea what statistical test I'm using. If anybody resonates with that, you go ahead and put that into the chat or into the Q&A. I guess we're moving into the Q&A section. So, but trust me that there are a lot of folks that just get stuck there. So we will talk about how do I determine what statistical test I use? It's an important question, okay? And your committee is going to want that, and your journal review is going to want that. So everybody needs to know that. Now, sample size, it seems a little bit misplaced, doesn't it? The sample size, that's the number of participants. Why do you have that as the last part? And you talked about participants 4 blocks ago, right? So the answer to that question is that to figure out what your sample size is, you need to know what your statistical analyses are, okay? So for most research that were academic research, whatever you're doing, faculty, student, whatever, okay, those sample sizes are 99 times 0.999 based on the analysis. What does that mean? That means if I'm doing a t-test, I need 34 people. If I'm doing a regression, I need X amount of people. If I'm doing a correlation, I need X amount of people. All right, so this is the figuring out, they call it a power analysis, okay? POWER, power analysis. This is a power analysis or sample size determination. How many folks do I need based on my data plan? And okay, I'll hold off for there in a moment. If there's other questions, feel free. Melissa, we are moving into the Q&A, correct? Or we're still using chat?
Yeah, the chat is open, but if you want to enter your questions that you want Dr. Laney to answer when he goes to a pause, use the Q&A for that so we can keep them in the same spot.
Fine. And then just keep me abreast of what am I looking at, Q&A or what chat or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and I talk about this as a cookbook, and there's lots of kind of analogies, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to, again, give that methodology to someone that they can clearly understand what you're doing and they can replicate it. That's the essence of science. It has to be replicable. There's been a big problem in the past, probably maybe it's mitigated now, but people could not replicate studies. Why? They didn't have the clean methodology, right? If you follow the methodology, you should find similar results. That's how I validate that your findings are reliable, accurate, okay? That I have to be able to follow it. Just a quick sidebar. I met a guy, a famous researcher out of Texas, okay? And he had a little secret sauce in there. His procedure was not quite what was in his paper, okay? He told, the participants, this is the most important study, and he was really juicing them up, these participants. So you have to, if you're going to do that, you need to share that verbal protocol that you're explaining to students. You have to explain every aspect of that, okay? By the way, do not put in anything else in here. I've seen lit review stuff in here, okay? That doesn't go here. That goes in literature review. So only these kind of pieces, maybe ethical concerns, maybe about confidentiality of the data and so forth, okay? But basically these are the bones of it. But don't put in other stuff, okay? Keep it clean. Yeah, you don't want other things in your recipe that have nothing to do with your recipe, right? Okay. All right, so let's dig into the data analysis plan business, okay? So This is basically, how am I going to test these research questions? What statistical test am I going to use? All right. There's only two pieces of that pie, okay? Two things make up that data plan, okay? You have to have research questions stated in statistical language, and you have to know how those variables are being measured. Is it nominal, ordinal, scale? What's the level of measurement? Those two pieces, the beauty is once you know those two pieces, doesn't matter 1,000 studies, okay? You can figure out that data plan because that's all you need. How are things being phrased and how are these things being measured, okay? So let's talk about these. So method or language, okay? So most of the time, there's basically three types of phraseology, okay? There's some slight variation, but basically they're saying, does this variable relate to that variable? They might say, does this variable correlate to that variable? But relating, that's a kind of natural or normal kind of phraseology, okay? By the way, this relating, we're kind of in correlation land and chi-square land, okay? But just to know, does this relate to that? That's one type of question, and it covers lots of things, okay? And it covers all different kinds of variables. So does A relate to B? The next one, are there differences on A by B? Differences? So we're really in kind of t-test land, ANOVA land, MANOVA land, okay? So when we're looking at differences, okay, you're in this again, ANOVA, MANOVAs, t-test kind of business. And is variable A predicted by variable B? Okay, anytime you see predicted or things of this sort, okay, accounted by, impact, does variable A, does B impact B? Anytime you see those things predicted, you are in regression land. Now there's a few regressions, but basically speaking, okay, you're in regression land. So if you know, okay, about language as talking about relating to differences or predicted by your impact, you're covering, 25 tests that are covering the vast majority of everything that you're doing and everybody on this call. And if this isn't one of you, I'd like to hear that, okay? To say, well, here's what I'm doing, and we'll figure it out. But this covers a vast majority of research, okay? Caveat sidebar. There is structural equation modeling. There are other complicated analyses, okay? But these are the bones. Those structural equation models and other models, those are called advanced analyses. And they're called advanced because it takes, you have to know those ones first, okay? So these are, I'll say common and maybe even basic, but you should know these things, okay? All right. After we get that language piece, one part of the data analysis plan, you need to know the level of measurement of the variables. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to tell you that there's basically three levels of measurement. There's nominal level variables, ordinal level variables, scale level variables. Those icons of a Venn diagram, a little bar chart, and a ruler kind of really represent that, okay? So these nominal variables, these are really just names, the labels, okay? Male, female, Republican, Democrat, okay? There's no order, there's no, okay, to these things. They're just names. As I say, nominal is Latin for name only. I should really get the actual Latin there, but that's another story. So just labels, no order, no hierarchy, things of this sort. Ordinal has two pieces in there of information. It has a label, small, medium, extra large, Godzilla large, okay? And it has an order. Small is the first one, medium is the next one, big gulp is the next one, or whatever. So it does have an order. But importantly, that order, they're not equally spaced, okay? Small to medium in terms of volume, small to medium, might be 8 to 12 ounces. Medium to big gulp might be from 12 ounces to 32 ounces or whatever they do. Okay. So there's no equal intervals per se in volume or in space, things of this sort. Okay. Scale has all three pieces of it. Okay. So first of all, scale, they call these, and there's lots of nuance to this, not a lot of nuance, but we're talking about ratio into variables, ratio level measurement, interval level measurement. Basically, it's got three things. It has a label, 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degrees, 4 degrees. It's got an order, 2's after 1, 3's after 2, and it has equal spacing, as a ruler does, okay? Equal whatever it is, 16ths of an inch or whatever. Okay, so you have equal spaces, so that has all three. Why does this matter? Why in the world would I have to care about that? I can see asking a question, but why do I care about the level of measurement? Well, as it turns out, certain tests only allow for certain levels of measurement. That's why. That's why you have to know this. You have to memorize this. It's not tough to memorize. You have to know this. Okay. Pearson correlation, you have to have two scale level variables. You cannot have ordinal, you cannot not have nominal. Okay. You need two scales. So different tests have different requirements and assumptions, but different requirements for the level of measurement. That's why it's key. So let's get into this relating one, okay? So there's variable A, there's variable B, okay? If A is nominal and B is nominal, we're in chi-square land. If A is nominal and B is ordinal, we're in chi-square land, and so forth. Ordinal, ordinal, Spearman, ordinal, scale, Spearman, scale, scale, Pearson. Most of the times, okay, most of the times, we have scale and scale, and we're doing Pearson correlation. Does age and income correlate? Okay, age is scale, income in dollars is scale. We can correlate them together. Most of the world is scale to correlate things. The other very common one is nominal. Okay, diagnosis, yes, no, and time, pre to post to some darn thing like this. Okay, so most of the times chi-squares you're going to see nominal, and then relating variable A with variable B, or what I would say, time and diagnosis. Okay, and scale, very common. So we have the research question in statistical language. Does variable A relate to variable B? Check. And we know the level of measurement, nominal. That's driving the test. That's all there is to it. Okay. Next one, differences. As I mentioned, we're kind of in t-test land and ANOVA land. Again, variable A by variable B. If it's, looking at a scale variable, is there a difference in the race time of a 5K by a nominal variable, males and females? Okay, we have two levels, t-test. Okay. If we have runtime by gender and we're using male, female, non-binary, three levels, let's put up 3 fingers for that, then we're in ANOVA land, okay? And you can see scale by ordinal by nominal, okay? And we're kind of looking at other types of tests, Mann-Whitney and so forth. So again, we have research questions, are there differences on, and we have levels of measurement. Finally, we have regression world, again, looking at prediction or impact, things of this sort. And the key here with regression, it's really very simple. It's all upon that the dependent variable or the criterion level variable or the outcome variable. And that outcome variable is going to take one of 4 forms, okay? It's either going to be a binary variable, live, die, yes, no, whatever, okay? Or it's going to be a multinomial, okay, which is Republican, Democrat, green, okay, 3 nominal levels, okay. Ordinal, first place, second place, third place, or age ranges, okay, or a linear, excuse me, an outcome variable, which is really scale in order, scale in nature, like run times. So you either have a binary outcome variable leading to a binary logistic regression. You have a nominal variable with three or more levels. We're really in multinomial regression world. You have an ordered outcome variable. We're doing an ordinal regression, or we have a scale variable and we're doing a linear regression. So that's the key part. The outcome variable scale, we're doing linear regression. If you have more than one predictors, they call it a multiple linear regression. But don't get hung up on that. And people do. Like my professor said, I have to do a multiple linear regression. Okay, you only have one predictor. You're basically doing a linear regression. So, but again, the key part is the dependent variable there. All right. Okay, before I go on, Melissa, do I have any questions going on here? Or are we just moving the
Not at the moment. And everyone, please feel free to enter your questions in the Q&A and we'll stop along the way and answer them. But not at the moment. You can keep going.
That's fine. Also, I speak quickly, so if you would like me to repeat something, that means that you and probably someone else did not hear what I said, or that I just, spoke too quickly. So if you would like me to reshare something prior to me moving on, or you were like, what does that mean? Take a moment and just type that into the Q&A or into the chat. Okay. And I just see Melissa's having a conversation that's saying that, yes, this entire webinar will be is recorded and will be given to folks. Okay. Let's move on. Qualitative methods. Slightly different animal. Okay. We're talking about interviews or narratives and I'm using the example of just really thematizing or phenomenological kinds of studies. And here, the bones of the method here is really the research questions. Those are critical. Those are really important because they're going to drive your semi-structured interview. Now, in the quant, I said definitely use reliable, valid instruments. Here, a little bit more flexible to say, no, you can kind of come up with your own questions. I would have other people vet it for validity of, hey, those are the questions I kind of want to get to examine these. These are the interview questions I want to look at those research questions. So it's good to have your advisor or others look at those. But typically those are very tied together. Okay. By the way, just one thing I want to don't make your interviews, I see people, I'm doing 30 interviews of an hour and a half long. Why are you doing that to yourself? I mean, if you're a multi-million-dollar funded researcher, okay, great, have at it. Most people are students or profs just getting through an article. This is not for researched 30 years of experience folks I'm talking to. I'm just talking about most folks starting their careers or finishing their dissertations. Okay. All right. Participants, obviously, they should have some experience in a topic that you're interviewing them about. If you're looking for parents' experiences of their school, they should have a kid in school or have had a kid in school. Okay. If you're interviewing, teachers' experience, they should be a teacher. So obviously, so it seems kind of dumb, but just make sure that they have the experience on that topic. The instrument procedures can kind of go together, or you can break them up. But I mean, the instrument is going to be that semi-structured interview for sure. And or some other kind of observations, okay, if you're just observing folks, or some phenomena. And the procedure is going to be analogous to the quant of, hey, you know what? I've talked about the participants. I've talked about the semi-structured interview. How am I going to do this? Well, I'm going to recruit them here. Then I'm going to interview them via Zoom. I'm going to have the record feature of Zoom enabled. Okay, so that's the procedure part. The data plans are really, I mean, I look at it in a few ways, but for sure, what you're trying to do is discern the phenomena in their narrative, in their conversation. So you want to be able to excerpt what they are, any important passages, okay? And then you would be wanting to be grouping those similar excerpts together to say, hey, this kind of seems like this kind of a code or code and code description, and then a theme, which is several codes together. At the baseline level, that's all we're doing, okay? Excerpting and winding up with themes that that describes the phenomena in those excerpts. Okay. Let's move on to sample size. So I mean, if you talk to qual people, they're going to say, you need as many people it is to get saturation, which is, hey, you know what? No new phenomena is being extracted from their information. And that's fine, okay? You know, I mean, you're studying this, okay? And you want to get those emergent themes out of there. But don't go crazy, okay? Don't go crazy. That's all I gotta say. In terms of the size of that or the length of that. You can get a lot of information from 10 to 15 folks in 30 minutes. Especially if you speak as quickly as me and listen as quickly. So you gotta, you can grab that, okay? So just get to the heart of it, but don't, cost yourself like, oh, I can't get the 28th person, and then you're kind of dead in the water for a few weeks. So, okay. Ethical considerations, more so than the quant, but quants, they're both important. But, you must get consent. You cannot surreptitiously, get people to take your surveys. You have to get consent, okay? And in that consent is going to be talking about any potential harm that could be done. And if you feel uncomfortable in any way, who do I go to? Who's your supervisor? So consent is an important thing. And so, yeah. Part of that too is, is your data going to be confidential or anonymous? Okay. How are you going to be storing that data? We used to say it's under a lock and key or whatever. I mean, most of the time it's on our computers, but if you protect that file, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But state that. And IRB is going to want to know about that. Okay. IRB is going to care about, for sure, the protection of those people, because most researchers want to do their research, and patient safety was not always at the top of their mind, and that was a problem. As the Tuskegee participants will tell you. Okay, so you have to get consent and tell them the potential harm. Okay, and so forth. Some practical notes. So most people, when they are, and we use AI, okay, to do our excerpting and thematizing, and we have more kind of a non-AI, but drafted up quant results, and I'll show you in a moment. So with respect to the qual, most people just put the full interview in. You don't have to do it that way, okay? You can put it in by research question or by domain. It's very common. if you had managers and subordinates, you know, you might want to have two separate projects and then look at those themes that are similar and themes that are different. Okay. Obviously, quality and the depth of your themes are much, much more important than the quantity. You want good, rich themes. And you don't want 120 of them, okay? You want, for me, my bias. By the way, in the quant piece, you want to talk about your bias. Quant, there's not too much bias going on. I mean, maybe bias in the questions, but there's not bias in the interview. There's not leading questions as could be in the qualitative. So you want to have a really, really good check on your bias. Everyone has a bias. Everyone has a bias. Our job is to identify that bias and mitigate the effect of that bias on other people. That is our participants and other people, but okay. All right, so before we get to questions, well, if you have questions, that's fine. Let me just jump into three kind of three of the tools that we're talking about. This isn't really what I'm being on. This is the I think this is where I want to be. Let's see. Okay, am I in the right one here? Let's review. I think this is, if I come up with the same one. Melissa, what is the website address? We need one solid website address. I'm sorry.
Are you looking for the main site, which
Yes,
is
ma'am.
Intellectus Lit Review?
Intellectus. Okay. So at Intellectus Lit Review, and it'll be at the end of the presentation too, you can, you know, trial this, but basically you can put in 50, 100, 200 articles, and it will figure out which ones go together, okay? Which ones will draft a synthesis of that and draft a description of each one of them, of each article, and draft a gap in the literature. Your job is to go in as a critical evaluator of that, okay? And really be prepared to defend a judgment of why those things go together. So we're really shifting the ball with AI from kind of generating that draft to really defending your editorial judgments around that. So Intellectus Lit Review. We also have the Intellectus Statistics, and Intellectus Statistics. And Melissa, maybe put our upcoming website in the chat, or maybe we need to. We have a website consolidating all of these, but it will be a few weeks out. But just to know, Intellectus Statistics. There's also a cool way and efficient way to analyze quantitative data. Okay. And it's cheap. I guess I'll say, you know, even for students, you know, it's 59 bucks a month. You probably bang out your results in a month. Okay. Well, maybe in a half hour. Okay. So, and then there's Intellectus Qualitative. Okay. And this is doing that excerpting, thematizing, and so forth. So just to kind of give you a brief flavor of the statistics tool, you can, you know, upload data, you know, different file formats. I think I have, let's see what I have here. Well, you can manage data, you can plot data, and you can do lots of types of analyses. So, you know, the correlations we talked about, the t-tests we talked about, the ANOVAs talked about briefly, regressions, okay? Correlations are up here. So you can do lots of kinds of tests, but the beauty is that it really drafts things up for you. So if I correlate, let's see if I have if I'm correlating two variables. By the way, it would only let you, for this, it would only show you scale level variables, okay? So it wouldn't show you the whole list. It would just show you, okay? So let me see. Let's correlate burnout and intrusion thoughts. See how that goes. So for each one of these analysis, they'll have a little introduction. They'll preload the assumptions for you and have a scroll over to help you analyze those assumptions. And then they have the results in plain English. Okay. Significant positive correlation was observed between burnout and intrusion. Okay. Talks about the effect size, talks about the probability. Okay. And it gives the interpretation. What does a positive correlation mean? This suggests that as burnout increases, intrusion increases. Okay. And then a couple ways of seeing that in the table. By the way, it makes APA tables. So for all of these different tests, assumptions built in, APA tables and figures built in, and interpretation built in. Your job is now to edit that document. Very easy to do. One huge bonus of this is that if you have reliable valid instruments, remember that? Reliable valid instruments, and you put them in and you do some analyses, we also have the insights, which is basically a discussion chapter draft. So not only is it going to draft your quantitative results with assumptions and tables, it's going to then drill into the literature, okay, and put your results in context with a discussion draft. This will be named a discussion draft any day now. So, but theoretical implications, practical implications, future research, limitations, conclusions, and references. So huge winner when you use intellectual statistics and you identify clearly your instruments. Okay. The other thing to show you is just really the qualitative tool, and here you can upload some basic transcripts. So here I've uploaded 4 transcripts. And the tool will really go in and do that initial excerpting for you. I did a qualitative study. It took literally 1 year at my kitchen table with 3 colleagues to excerpt, okay? This is doing it in 2 minutes. Now, I haven't really tried it with my old, I should go back to those interviews and see, but you know, it's in very short order, it's found 24 codes and 64 excerpts. So you can really, so you can see where those excerpts are right here. The excerpts are here, the codes are here, and then go in and thematize for you, which is really the process of figuring out how many themes capture all of those codes, and then describing, okay, then describing those themes. So here they found 12 themes, and you can see that under the details that it's found a theme name that captures these 3 codes. It's describing that theme and then showing the excerpts underneath it. So again, your job would be to evaluate that. Why do you think that those are good themes? Edit the theme names, edit the theme descriptions, but also justify why that is. Why is that a good theme? Why does that really represent those excerpts there? All right. So very important. Let me also make sure that you have a QR code to meet with me, free 15 minutes, no faculty, meet with you, talk about your research. Happy to do that. Also for students who may want some hand holding, you can contact Samantha. Okay. For faculty, again, demos, we have courseware for the Quant and Qual. You can contact Ashley, Melissa for any or all other questions. Some of the websites, and our contact phone number. So I think with that, let me just see the questions here. So Q&A. Okay, so we're conducting a qualitative, descriptive, phenomenological study. Boy, isn't that a mouthful? And haven't conducted the interviews though, but we are planning on interpretive phenomenological. Is that right? Or are we supposed to use other type of analysis? You know, I'm not quite sure what the interpretive part. I mean, to me, so that's a new adjective in front of phenomenological analysis. I'm guessing that's right, but I would throw that into chat, frankly, and say, how is interpretive phenomenological analysis different than phenomenological analysis? Or you have an interpretive, descriptive, phenomenological. We have a lot of adjectives there. So if your goal is to derive themes, excerpt and derive themes, then yes, we're on the right track there. Okay. And happy to have a quick conversation, John, on that. Faith, does the qualitative tool distinguish different types of analysis? Grounded theory, deductive? It doesn't. So, I mean, that's another iteration, Faith. I think that's a good question. So there's different types of qualitative. So at the moment, we don't have that. But I think this could give you a good start to those, for example, grounded theory, because you'll have the themes, you're going to have some superordinate theme. How does this bump up against AI policy that states that we can't use AI? Shama, let me tell you, that will change. Okay, I mean, follow the rules now, of course, follow the rules, but AI is here. Most folks are identifying that AI is here to stay. And just to kind of show you a visual of that. Let me just slideshow. Just to kind of show, this is from a Titan Partners. And I think I just want to show you that in spring 23 to spring 25, you can see the administrators, moving on up, okay? Instructors moving on up, students moving on up. This will continue. This is not going to stop in 2025 and 2026, okay? So everyone will be using, so students, you can see, are using it more and more, frequent usage, okay? So, and even faculty to do the grading. So, I'm sorry that your school is not there yet. So if your policy is we cannot use it, then you can't use it. You can still use the well, the statistics is not AI for the results. It's templatized. So that should be able to replace SPSS or Excel. So no AI there. And for the qualitative, you can code an excerpt by hand. I haven't got into that, but there's Tuesday sessions that can do that. So you can still do it in a manual fashion. But most schools are leading most schools are definitely leaning into that. Okay. All right. Let me see here. I have another question. Since I will have used AI to analyze my qualitative data, how do I acknowledge it? We have and Melissa, maybe you could just share the link of that verbiage. So our position is you should be 100% transparent. So, and part of that transparency is sharing that you're using these tools in your methodology section, okay, under the data analysis plan. And I think Melissa will share the verbiage of that, okay? What percentage of my analyzed material would be accepted as AI generated? I hope that you, Patrick, I hope that you edit every piece of it. The goal is to, I mean, the excerpts are going to be from the participants in qualitative context. But you should be analyzing and you know, and editing every part of the theme name and theme description, and really going from being a generator of the theme to really evaluating that theme. And I think that you should touch 100% of that. I wouldn't just say, oh, this came up with those themes and just turn those in. No, you have to be 100%. You have to touch everything there. I apologize if you covered already. Could you briefly introduce the Intellectus work with the PhD students? Okay, can you briefly introduce how Intellectus work with PhD students after consultation? Well, so I mean, since we developed the tools 12 years, I'm pretty fluid, and we just you know, we can help walk you through that that results draft and make sure you understand it. And if you have reliable, valid tools, show you a discussion section that, again, is a scaffolding is the beginning. You got to touch every part of it. There's nothing that you're putting here and turning in. Okay, that's a recipe for disaster. You must edit everything. Okay. Other questions, thoughts, concerns? Okay. So I think with that being, if that's accurate, then I will just, you know, and with this. So again, thank you all so much for joining. Almost everybody stayed in here, so I'm kind of like pretty happy that hopefully you got something out of this thing and you were engaged in this. So thank you all very much. I see Melissa put in the AI policy that we have. And thank you all so much. We will get you the recording of the webinar. We'll also get you upcoming webinars. Please share it with others if you found it of value. If you know folks, that are in different chapter 2 or chapter 4 or chapter 5, feel free to check out the websites. And anyway, just wish you all a wonderful weekend, and thanks for your attention. Thanks for coming, and please share it and stay safe.